Don't apologise.
Needed that. But before all that, we are joined by the lovely Carol Vorderman and Giles Brandreth to do our news review.
I have brought in my stallion today.
Good to see you.
This is a reference to the news of the day being called a stallion because we're going to be talking about Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex. I explained that. Other people have been talking about Harry. It's not Harry Styles. It is Harry Sussex.
We will get there.
We will eventually get there. So the stallion reference will be explained in the fullness of time. It is a bit early in the day.
To be honest, it doesn't need to be. I understand, Carol. Out of context, why there doesn't need to be context.
Thank you. I've come, as you see, wearing a frog in the hope that I get kissed and turned into a prince.
Give him a kiss, Carol. Give him a kiss.
I'll give the frog.
Oh, yes. Oh, he's already a prince, isn't he? He never needed to change.
Man to
Never
duke.
needed to change. Are you all right, Carol?
Very good.
So we
Happy
booked
New
our
Year.
holiday. Me and Carol going on holiday.
We're going on
We decided.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a spa holiday. What happens?
There's no
It's
food.
exercise, juice and hot tubs.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Only going for 5 days. Only going for longer
And
than me,
Alice is
aren't you?
really suited to it because you've got to be really quiet in this place.
Well, I wasn't going to go, you know.
That old
She got
saying.
kicked off a ski slope. How is she going to last 5 days in a juicing retreat?
I actually cancelled it. I actually cancelled the holiday.
And I
thought,
persuaded you
and then
back
I
in.
phoned her. I said, "You're going on holiday?" But I literally booked it there and then.
Yeah.
Sent her the
And
flight
you
details.
share a hot tub. I've always thought that's a bit of a strange thing
Well,
to do.
no, there's this big one there. Sorry,
Is there a hot tub?
there's going to be Denise Welsh, Rob Rinder.
Oh, my gosh.
You, me. I mean, it's.
Oh, it's co-ed.
Well, that's all we have time for in the news review today. Celia, enjoy it.
Hot tubs and you lot. Oh, can't wait for this. Right, let's talk about Harry then.
Well, let's start with, and this is a shift down because this is obviously it's a very serious thing. In his memoir Spare, Prince Harry said he flew on 6 missions that resulted in the taking of human lives, something he was neither proud or ashamed about. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but none of us have served in the military here, so it's very difficult to comment or pass judgment on the wisdom of this disclosure. But what are your thoughts?
Well, we did not serve in the military, but I come from a family where father, grandfather were regular soldiers. Son-in-law actually served with Harry in Afghanistan. And my friend here, I think, is an honorary group captain in the RAF.
Yeah.
And all I can tell you, these are revelations that have come to us sooner than we expected. The book is published in this country on Tuesday. Yesterday, copies appeared in Spain. So what we are reading about in the papers today, what we're talking about, is British journalists fumbling through their Spanish dictionaries or using Google Translate to
It's like that
translate
scene
this from the Spanish into English. And Prince Harry's people are saying, wait till you see the context of all of this, because actually in context some of it isn't perhaps as shocking as it might be. But this has shocked people that I know in the military world.
How come?
Harry is telling us that when he was serving in Afghanistan, he killed 25 Taliban. And to talk about the nature of a mission in this way is simply not done. You don't apportion it to yourself. If you're in an Apache helicopter, you're with other people. It's a team effort. And you do not go into the detail of a campaign. Nobody does this. It isn't done. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. I mean, I would imagine within the military, either former serving soldiers or pilots or officers, non-commissioned officers, that there will be a deep disappointment, a really genuinely deep disappointment that he's given that amount of detail.
Really?
Yeah, genuinely.
It's also quite strange because one of the things that one of the reasons he went to California was for privacy, and one of the things that he worried about was his own security.
Yeah.
And indeed, he was suing the British government for payment to cover the cost of his security. Well, does this make him more of a target? He's actually saying, I did this as part of my service, I did this. Does it actually make him more of a security risk?
I would imagine the answer is yes.
Well, which is very worrying.
But again, like you said, you kind of want to know what the context of him, talking about it. I really want to read the book. Like, I was thinking also, the fact that all these rumours are out, is anyone going to buy the book now? Because I feel like we've kind of read it.
Well, this is very frustrating for the publishers because, of course, there is so much in the newspapers today, so much detail.
Yeah.
And it's a human story. He's got it all off his chest. There's much more in this than anybody expected.
Yeah.
It really is raw and unflinching. Some of it's quite funny. A lot of it is very human. Some of it is not very nice.
Giles, are you, as a royal biographer yourself, are you surprised by by the level of honesty and disclosure, from what you've seen yet?
By the level of openness at this stage. We discover all these things about former royals as the years go by. We know, for example, one of the things we're going to talk about is him saying when he lost his virginity, aged 16 or 17, in a field behind a pub with an older woman.
Yes.
But in fact, we do know, for example, how King George VI lost his virginity. It was discovered in correspondence published many years after the event. The rule of the late Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh was simply, don't talk about these things. People aren't interested. They don't need to know. Once you say something, they'll always want something more. So that generation would not have done this. We live in a different world. And Harry has left the royal family. He no longer has official duties. And therefore, he is like a celebrity.
He's free.
He is free to tell his story his way, and that's what he's doing. And clearly, we're all fascinated because we've invested in this boy since he was a lad.
When you see Tom Rugby ask him about reconciliation and so, like, do either of you think it's certainly not possible in the short term? Do you think it's possible at all?
It can't make it any easier, can it? I mean, if you just accept that they're brothers, any family, you know, every family has bouts of rifts that go on for a year or more or less, and then you come together and you come together at Christmas, and then there might be another one. It's the swings and roundabouts of family life. But I think when you put it out in public, and a lot of people who are merely celebrities will have that. Do you put it out in public? Because once it's out there, you cannot pull it back in. And I think that's the great danger with this. I mean, how does Prince William and Kate, how are they meant to react to this, even if they're allowed to or not? It's what happens next.
I don't know.
And it's said after, you know, the Queen's funeral and after the four of them walked out from Windsor Castle together, and we thought, oh, fantastic, there's a reconciliation and all of this brouhaha has disappeared. It hasn't, and it's got worse because of this.
But judging from what he has said in one of these interviews, he feels he has made peace with his past. So he, I think, feels this is all over and settled. And he is now looking for a conversation. I think that's the way he feels now has to be done, a conversation. I think the English way is probably not to have a conversation, but just to move on. The King certainly sent out a message. His very first statement when he was king was to send his love to Meghan and Harry as they set out on their new life. And the invitation to come to the coronation will stand, and the hope will be that by then, it's not until the 6th of May, the dust will have settled and people will have moved on.
Charles, do you think even with the fact that Harry and William apparently begged Charles not to marry Camilla, do you think that he still feel like that as the king and invite him to the coronation?
Yes, this is where Harry would want you to know what the context was. He was saying that right soon after Diana died.
Right.
And he was anxious that there would be comparisons between Diana and Camilla. More than 20 years ago, I saw with my own eyes Harry and William with Charles and Camilla at Highgrove before Charles and Camilla were married, and I have to say they looked like a proper family, and to see Camilla chatting to them, there was nothing of the wicked stepmother about her. It was very easy and very comfortable. Look at the pictures of them on the wedding day, and you can see Harry and William genuinely wishing their father well.
So you think this is out of context?
It's out of context. It was true at the time. I'm sure they did say, well, please don't marry her, because that's going to open up all that comparing.
They were children. They were children.
But I think years later, when they did get married, they wished them well, and it clearly... it works. The marriage works for the king, and it seems to work for the rest of us, and I think it works for them.
Because you can see how people would read this and think, well, hang on a second. You know, the quote is, all we ask in return is that he did not marry her. You didn't need to remarry. We begged him. A wedding would make the whole country, the whole world compare our mother to Camilla, something nobody wanted.
If you're talking about the 1990s, that makes sense.
Of course.
Yeah,
but you can see how people would read that and say, well, hang on a second. You're doing this whole... thing for your own happiness and your own catharsis and looking after your own family. So there's a charge there of potential hypocrisy, and that your father is not allowed the same happiness.
Yes, and he can't come back. I witnessed that Camilla, William and Harry, I think they were probably in their early 20s, and Prince Charles had just fallen off a polo pony and broken his arm and he couldn't come to the dinner. And they were absolutely fine. So, but I totally agree with you, Giles, that it is the context. And I think when, you know, come next week, you will see it slightly more in
the challenge here, too, is that Harry quite rightly has said, I want a private life. I don't want the tabloids. And now every tabloid in the world is telling us what he is saying about having fisticuffs with his own brother, like a scene from the EastEnders when he knocked me over. I broke my necklace. My head hit the dog
The dog bowl.
The dog bowl, which then cracked, and the pain and all that. I mean, it's like the boof, boof, boof moment, isn't it? It's like, oh, no.
Doof doofs.
The doof doofs.
The doof
We want to all come
Royal
back after the break and what happens next.
Yeah.
So he's invading his own privacy, but he also actually is invading the privacy of members of his family.
Well, this is, I mean, I read this column this morning by Katie Spencer, who writes for Sky News, and it was a really brilliant column. She'd read the book, and she said that, and it just chimed with me, because she said that it's just, I feel sad that this, you know, this guy is obviously very, very troubled, has shared this, but who is this helping in the end? I'm
impressed she's read the book. Her Spanish must be good, and it's 410 pages, but nonetheless, well done her.
But I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Someone like the company at Sky News got that translated and she read it, right? I mean, come on.
Well,
It's not hard.
Yes.
But when you say he's troubled, of course he's troubled. You've got to remember and go back to when he was a child. He had to walk in front of everybody behind his mum, who had died. You know what I mean? Walk in that coffin. That must have been so difficult.
One of the interesting stories from the book, apparently, is him asking to drive through the very tunnel in Paris where his mother was killed at the same speed, at 65 miles an hour, to find what it was like. This is the reason I think everyone feels sympathy and empathy for Harry. Let him tell his story. He has had a troubled childhood. But in his own way, the King had a difficult childhood, or felt he did, and certainly the grandfather, the Duke of Edinburgh, had a very troubled childhood. These things happen in families. I think our concern is us all knowing this going to help the situation very much. If it's got it off his chest and it helps him, good.
I think a lot of people could understand why he would do that, though. I think he was aged 23 when he was driven through the tunnel at speed by his bodyguard. And you can understand there's some form of closure there. I could appreciate.
And through a medium, he tried to get in touch with his mother.
That's more recently.
More recently, but I remember when one of my sisters died, I went to a medium. And people do. You feel, you just want to, you think, where's that energy gone? Where's that person gone? And you somehow, you know it won't be real, but you reach out for something. So all of that, we are hugely sympathetic to.
What about him losing his virginity? I wonder if the woman would come out.
This is where the stallion reference
This is where the juice of the interview comes from, guys. Come on, Giles.
I don't know. It's not only
bring up any memories for you, Lady Chatterley, atonement style. Come on, Giles.
Well,
must have taken you back.
I can't believe
just get it out. Come on, let's atone now. Get it out.
Get it out. It's not a phrase I'm expecting to hear from you so early in the day. But it's charming.
So Prince Harry said, while he was at Eton...
Yes, explain it.
While he was at Eton...
Either 16... He possibly was 16, could have been 17.
17.
It's in the year when he could have been one or the other.
One or the other.
I went to the detail.
This is well thumbed. These pages are well thumbed.
My Spanish dictionary... Oh, what a night I had with the Spanish dictionary. I was trying to find what frostbitten penis is in Spanish, because he also tells us how he went... Was it the Arctic or the Antarctic? Anyway, his penis became frostbitten. Anyway, I've translated this from the Spanish, so if I got it wrong, and actually it's a sore thumb, I do apologise. But yes, age 16 or 17, in a field near school, an older woman took his virginity, and then, when the act of darkness had been completed, he lay on his front, and she smacked his bottom and sent him on his way.
What he says was...
Other channels are available. Sorry, it's in the book.
He said he went round the back of a pub in a field with an older woman.
Was she Spanish? I think she may have been Spanish. Her name was Concepcion.
Who liked macho horses. I rode her like a stallion. And she smacked my bum and sent me on my way.
Still to come. As Davina calls for a middle-aged version of Love Island, Carol and Giles staying with us to discuss more of today's top headlines. We hope, unless we're taken off air. Coming up after this, Carol and Giles are still with us discussing the stories of the day.
Welcome back, guys. We're going to kick off with this story. Davina McCall was on the CEO podcast, which was brilliant. And she spoke about why don't they have a middle-aged Love Island, which I just thought...
Such a good idea.
Yeah.
So much better. Well, not better. It would be
different,
a great
right?
idea.
Well, when I was in,
people.
About a month ago, and Davina was in on the same day as us, and we were talking about exactly that in the green room.
Would you do it?
Well, the only thing is I'm not looking for love, am I? So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
true.
Yeah.
But you'd still be a good on it, though, wouldn't you?
Get Carol there, she'll bamboozle the whole of them.
it'd be like,
Those
she'd
poor
go
men
on
wouldn't know
it.
where they're coming and going. Exactly. Davina
Imagine.
said, and I'm with you, I think it's a great idea. And that podcaster, you love that podcast.
It's a
don't you?
lovely podcast.
Yeah.
They've lived the
It
life.
is.
They're widows. They're people who've been through horrific
Yeah,
divorces.
yes.
They're people who split up with someone and
They've
decided
got
they want to try
stories.
going. Exactly.
Yeah.
Some of the same sexism. They're interesting people. I'd watch that show. And Davina would be perfect to host it.
And what would be good is Vorderman she'd go on and she'd be like, I'm not looking for love. And then she'd
Yes.
find love.
I don't want
She
the
doesn't.
You
love.
don't know.
You don't know, darling.
You don't know. It might
But
hit you
there are
straight
many
in the
different
face.
kinds
Bordeaux's
of love.
problem is that Carol would turn up there and all the men would just be like literally kneeling at her
No.
feet.
That's
And
the problem,
there'd
isn't it?
they'd never couple up. There'd never be a widow.
No,
I know.
no,
When we
no.
went to the audition together, we went for Celebrity Naked Attraction. We went to the audition. We did the pilot.
And then we weren't booked.
And then we weren't booked.
How do we top this?
Yes, and I have the idea. Never mind a middle-aged whatever it's called.
Love Island.
Love Island. What about an OAP Love Island?
I think it's a great idea.
My wife says to me every day, Giles, you're looking more and more like Steptoe Senior. Do you remember?
Of course I do.
There's an actor called Wilfred Bramble.
Yeah.
Harold.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
She said it'd be so amusing.
I don't know why they don't do that. Do you think it's about the merchandising?
Well, I don't quite
I think
understand
they
because
will
Giles,
do
for
it.
me, still qualifies for a middle-aged
Thank you.
island.
I agree.
I think they'll
agree.
do middle-aged Love Island.
Also, I love the merch.
Absolutely
The merch for
huge.
middle-aged Love Island would be amazing.
A hot water bottle.
Stannis Airlift.
I think. Oh yes, and them reaching out for the alarm. You know, you think they were bodies actually reaching out for each other, and you find no, they're reaching out for the alarm.
But the funniest bit was, I've got a text. No, hang on a minute. I can't.
Where's my glasses?
Where's my? Oh, how do you unlock it?
You could phone the grandchildren to explain what the emojis mean.
That's so true.
Aubergine, aubergine.
Do you guys have pets? Because Taylor Swift's cat is reportedly worth £81 million.
How?
I don't understand it.
I don't actually understand this. I know we're meant to be here explaiing the story, but I really don't understand.
Yes,
So the ranking of the
be
world's
worth
richest pets was compiled using the Instagram and how do you say analytics?
I mean, I get it watching that.
Look at that leg! Oh my God, it's not Victoria
Pilates
Beckham.
cat.
Amazing.
So each cat influences such as most followers, likes, engagements, and that's how they work out how much that cat is worth.
It turns out that it's simply an animal appearing with a star. And so Taylor Swift has appeared in a number of commercials with DirecTV,
animal.
Diet Coke, AT&T, in which a cat features. That's the cat that is worth that amount.
I see.
Because of the amount of exposure it gets. Craig David, therefore, turns out to be worth 15 million on this, because you appear with a pet.
Oh, it's because he
Unfortunate-
appeared with you a few weeks ago.
reckon?
That's right, yeah.
Ant and Dec, you
amazing.
know, are worth nearly 50 million. Maybe this is because Ant's called Ant and they think it's a pet. I don't know. Did you know that, actually, reverting to Harry, that Harry and William called each other Harold and Willie, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh.
I think this story, though, about Taylor Swift's cat
Yeah.
is a bit of a sort of maths make-up story, really, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, it's a journalist going, oh, yeah, I'll take this, and then they probably get paid this amount per post, and then we'll multiply
Yeah.
it by this and all that.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of one of those.
Our cat belongs to the people next door. Except the people next door have now moved. So if we get a lot of money out of the commercial, we're keeping it. So don't sue us.
This was a
Giles.
tonic. Thank you so much.
Carol, it's a pleasure, as always. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
We're going off to that field, aren't we, behind the farm?
Don't even
No,
think about it, guys.
we're not, Jo.
Coming up in just a second, the dog father, Graham Hall, will be sharing